In today's video, I'm going to walk you through how to create a well-structured project plan in Asana from start to finish. Whether you're launching a product, managing a campaign, or running an internal project, this setup is going to help you keep your tasks organized, your team aligned, and your timelines under control. Let's dive in. Now, before we get started, I'm going to show you what we will be building together today. So here's our project plan in Asana. You can see that it's organized by the project phase, and we have the core information that we need. Now, if I look at this project timeline, I'll see all of my tasks, the dates for my tasks, and the dependencies between my tasks across my different phases for my project plan. If I go to the list view, here I'm able to see all of the core information I need, such as the assignee, the due date, the dependency, the estimated time, the actual time, as well as the status and the stage. So this is the core information. I always recommend whenever working within Asana, it's always helpful to have whatever custom fields you need. But the primary fields that should always be set are the assignee, the due date, and the estimated hours. That's really vital for your workload view and for tasks to not be empty or ignored by team members. We also built some rules in this project plan, which is Asana's verbiage for automations, so that our workflow is just a little bit more streamlined. So when the status of my task gets set to completed, the task will automatically get marked as completed in Asana. Now, this wouldn't happen if I didn't set this rule up. So that's just kind of something to be mindful of. Statuses and the completion marking is not connected in Asana. You do have to create rules for those actions to be connected. So let's start working on this together. We're going to start from a basic project plan and we will turn it into what we have here right now for this product launch. So let's start from our home view in Asana. In Asana, you can have different teams. Teams is really where you could set up your different departments that you have for your agency. This can be structured in different ways, but here, just for an example, we have our projects team, our human resources, our development, and our accounting teams. If you're in multiple teams, you'll be able to see the projects in your project list across those multiple teams. So, because I'm part of the PMO, I'm going to be working in the projects team. This is where I will create my project for the day. If I go into all work, this is where I'm going to see the projects for the specific team. Let's go ahead and create a new project here. And you are able to create templates, so you can use templates to recreate your project. But for today's demo, I'm going to start with a blank project so we can build it as simple as possible together. Let's go ahead and set a project name. So I'm just going to do another product launch. So I'm just going to really be creating the same project. So I have my project name. I'm doing a product launch for the Glow Mist face mask. The team that this is a part of is the projects team, and I do want this to be shared with my team. If this needs to be private, you can always set it to specific invited members to access the project. If you need everybody in the organization, you can always set it to that as well. So let's go ahead and start with that. Here we can select which views we want for this project plan. That's the tabs that show up on top. Views are just different ways for you to visualize your data. Overview just kind of helps you have a place where you can see your project status, where you can see the roles, the description. So this is just kind of dependent on if it's important to you. I'm going to go ahead and keep that. The list is a required view. That's a way for you to just kind of see all of your data, your different custom fields all in one place. Then we have the board. The board is a Kanban view. So if you are tracking the status with your team, if you have a stand up, the board view is pretty helpful for those types of catch ups. Then we have the timeline view. The timeline view is a newer view that used to have the Gantt view, but the timeline is almost like a redefined Gantt view. I do prefer it over the Gantt, so that's what we're going to be selecting today. And then dashboard. What's nice about Asana is they do give you some standard metrics when you start, and then you can always modify for what your need is. Let's go ahead and create project with these views. Like I said, you can always deselect. So if you only want the list view or if you only want list and timeline, you can make those adjustments. Now we have created our project. In our project, we have sections and we have our actual tasks that we create. Now, sections is a way for you to categorize and organize your work. The way that I like to use sections is just setting the phases for my projects. It is different than a custom field, just something to keep note. Visually, it's a little bit easier for you to see sections and timeline. I'll get to that a little bit later. So let me go ahead and create a couple of my sections. So the first phase I have for my project plan is phase 1, strategy and planning. Phase 2 is creative development. So these are my 2 phases. Now, as you saw in my project plan, I had 5 different phases. I'm only going to build half of the project plan, and then we can kind of go back and look at my old one just to kind of look at all of the details there. All right. Now let's go ahead and create our first task. The first task we had was the client kickoff meeting. So let me go ahead and add that task. Perfect. So I have my first task created, and now what metrics, what data do I need for my task? I have my assignee, so I'm going to go ahead and set this to myself. I am the assignee for this task. My due date, let's say, for example, this is going to be due on August 11th, so next Monday. All right. And now we have some additional metrics that we do want to track. We want the estimated time for the task and the actual time. And these are native fields within Asana. So if I start searching estimated, I'll see that this is an Asana created field. I'm going to go ahead and add that. And then I can do actual time. And this allows you to actually track time for the tasks that you have. So let me go ahead and set the estimated time. This is going to be about an hour. And then as your team works on this, they can start to put their time track. So if they need to add 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or if they want to use a timer, this is for them to track their actual time that they worked on the task. So let's leave that empty for now. And then the other fields that I want to add are the status and the stage. So I already have my status field here, but let's go ahead and create one together. So I'm going to do more from library, and I'm going to create new. So to create a new field, you set the name of the field. So we're going to set this to status. And here we can put what options we want for the field. So not started, ready to pick up. We'll just keep this simple. In progress, in review, and completed. All right. So these are the statuses we're going to be using. Now over here, we have a couple options. We're able to add this to our field library. What this means is if we add it to the organization's field library, other teams are then able to use the same field for their projects that they create. And I do always recommend that for fields that might be more common and you like consistently used. So it's always good to kind of have like a similar status structure for your different project plans so that if you are building out dashboards, you can just kind of have the aggregated data for the statuses across all of your different project plans. So wherever you can use the same fields across your different projects, across your different teams, I would always recommend it because it's a little bit easier for reporting and dashboards. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit create field. Perfect. Now we have our statuses, and we're going to set this to not started because this is not started yet. And then the final field that we're going to create is a stage field. And this is just kind of letting us know what stage this specific task is a part of. So we have planning. The stage field aligns with our sections, and I'll show you what that looks like. Creative development, pre-launch prep, and I'll set it to that for now. Now, this stage field is not required, neither is the status. If you want, you can just use the native function within Asana to just keep a task as incomplete or mark it as complete when it's completed. The status is to kind of have a little bit more granularity of exactly where that task is. The stage is really the same function as the section. The only reason I find value in having the stage and the phase showing in the section is because if you come into this task, the section shows up here. So if I am not in this board and I open up this task, I'm able to see what section this task is part of from right up here, up top. The stage shows over here. Now, the benefit of both of these is if I go into the timeline view, I'm able to see my project plan, my Gantt view, grouped and categorized by the phases. So there is value of using the section so that you're able to organize your Gantt view. The benefit of the custom field for the stage is that you can see it right over here. So if I didn't create my custom field, I wouldn't be able to see what stage my task is a part of unless I opened the task up and saw it up here. So that's why I kind of like to have both of those places to track the stage. So I created a custom field and I also have my section. They're kind of one and the same, but different benefits and purposes. All right, let's jump into creating a couple more tasks. Now that we have our fields, I'm going to create a few more tasks. If I add task, there we go. I went ahead, I created my tasks that have finalized product details, defined target market. So these are our strategy and planning tasks. And here I can go ahead and set my assignee. Now, if all of these are going to be assigned to me, I'm also able to do some bulk. So I selected my top one. And then just like how you do in a Google Sheet, I'm going to hit Shift and I'm going to select the last one. And then that selects all of the tasks. Once I've selected multiple tasks, I'm able to do some bulk changes right here. So if you hover over this, it'll show you what that icon indicates. So I want to assign these all to myself. Once I hit that, now those are automatically assigned. Now these are also going to all be in planning. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these again, and I'm going to go ahead and set the status and the stage. If I hit edit fields, status is going to be not started, and stage is going to be planning. So that is an easy way to do some bulk edits. Now that I have that, I can go ahead and start setting my due dates. So say, for example, the client kickoff meeting is Monday. Let's set the start date and the due date to Monday. If my finalized product details is going to take a week, I'm going to go ahead and set that from Tuesday to Friday. And then we have define target market. So this is where you can just start to set your dates. And then we set up our estimated time. So say, for example, this is 2 hours and this is 3 hours, right? So now that I have this all set up, I have two ways where I can start to define my dependencies and relationships. I can add a field here. There's blocked by and blocking. So I can add this here. Now that I have my blocking field here, I can indicate my client kickoff meeting is blocking the finalized product details. So that's one way to set dependencies between my tasks. Another way to do this, my preferred way to do this, is in the timeline view. I'm able to see all of my tasks that have due dates. So let's go ahead and add some due dates for these. Now, if I come in a timeline, boom, I see these tasks here. If my tasks are too spread apart, I can always change this to make this a little bit more zoomed out. So that is an option here. You can have this by quarters, half year, months, or you can zoom in it more and have it by weeks, days, or hours. So let's go back into weeks. Here, I'm able to see I have my defined target market and I have my finalized. Now, I believe my defined target market is actually dependent and blocked by finalized product. So I'm actually going to move this out a little bit. So I'm able to update my dates here, which is quite nice. I can then go ahead and drag and drop to set my dependencies. Same thing here. I can say this defined targets is blocking my established KPIs. There we go. Right? Once I set up my dependencies, I can also expand the dates here. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and set this last dependency. There we go. And I can open these up a little bit. I can drag these around. Now my dates are set for my phase one tasks. Now, what's really nice about this in the timeline view, I'm able to make some adjustments here for my project dependency setting. In my project dependency settings, there are three options for how we want the dependency dates to shift. Either we don't want them to shift, we want to ignore the time between the tasks, even if there's a conflict, and just be able to adjust, and it won't have any effect on our other tasks. It'll indicate a red indicating that there's some issues with the dependency, but overall it's not going to move the dates of any of our other tasks. Now, the other option is we can maintain a buffer. So whatever the amount of time there is between the tasks will stay the same. So let's go ahead and test this out. There's two options here. It can be a buffer maintained for all dependent tasks, or it can be for downstream dependent tasks only. What this means is if there were some tasks before this task, do we want that to move as well? Or do we want just any task after that dependent task to move? I'm just going to set it to for downstream. I don't think it makes sense for the tasks before to move along, especially if they might have been considered completed. So let's go ahead and test this out. If I move this, I'll now see all of my dependent tasks that are downstream have moved along with that, and the buffer between the tasks has maintained. Let's go ahead and test where the buffer gets adjusted. Let me go ahead and do consume buffer. Now, if I move my finalized product details, I will see that the buffer has now been consumed. Now, if I move this more, I'll see that there's no longer a buffer between these, but this did move because there's no more buffer in between these tasks. So that is dependency settings within Asana's timeline view. So now that we have created our project list, we have set up our core fields that we need to track our project, as well as looked at the dependencies within our timeline view. The last thing I want to cover is automations. Now, if I currently set this to completed, you'll see that my status is completed, but my task didn't get marked as completed. Now, these are two different functions within Asana, and you have to use their rules to connect those and have them speak to each other. So we're going to go ahead and build some rules together to make those changes. Let's go into Customize. We're going to go into Rules, and we're going to add a rule. And we are going to create a custom rule. Perfect. What we're going to say is, so when the task completion status is changed, and status is complete, we're going to check to see if the field isn't completed. If it isn't completed, we're going to change the status to completed. All right. So what are we doing in this automation? Let's kind of go over this again. When my status of my task gets marked as complete in Asana, this is first going to check, hey, is the status set to completed? Because we don't want these rules to run for no reason. This is almost a condition that's verifying that the status isn't already set to completed. And this is saying, if it is not set to complete, go ahead and set it to complete. All right. So if I go ahead and publish this rule, if I mark this task as complete, this is now automatically going to set my status to completed. Perfect. Now, if I go ahead and do that again, if I mark my task as complete, that rule is not going to run again because it's already set to completed. All right. Now let's do this the other way. If I go ahead, if I mark this as completed, it's not marking my task as complete. So we're going to go ahead and set that as well for that function to work. Create custom rule. Now what we're going to say is when the status is changed, this is the custom field, not the section. Let's actually make this more specific. When the field is set to completed, that's when this automation is going to run. We're going to check to see if the completion status is incomplete. If the task is incomplete, we're going to go ahead and change the completion status to complete. Perfect. Now let's test this out. I'm going to mark the status and set it to completed. Perfect. That marked my task as complete. Now these two are talking to each other. So now my status and my completion status within Asana now speak to each other. Let me go ahead and fill out my remaining fields so we can see what the workload view looks like. Let me go ahead and set my tasks. Now that these are all assigned to me, it might be a little bit tricky to see some metrics, so I'm going to go ahead and reassign a couple of these tasks to my partner. All right, now that we've done that, let's go ahead and add a workload view here. So we're in the workload view, and the purpose of the workload view is just to see the capacity for your team members and what their allocation looks like. So this is currently by days, and you can adjust this so that you can see it by months, or if you want to see the team's capacity for the week. So I can see this is by task count, and I'm going to update this for this to be by estimated time. Because we are using estimated time, we can set our maximum estimated time per person per week. We can either set a standard for our team, or we can set custom individual ones if you have contractors. So say, for example, Ali usually does 20 hours per week, and I am usually doing about 30 hours per week. Let's go ahead and set that capacity. For Ali, we're able to see that, he does need more hours. He needs some more work assigned to him. We have 1 hour for the week of August 11th, 2 hours for the week of September 1st, and 2 hours for the week of September 8th. So I can say, all right, Ali needs some more hours. Let's go ahead and assign him some more work. I'm going to go ahead and move some tasks over. All right. Now we can see he has about 4 hours for the week of September, 8 hours Let me go ahead and drag this up too. And then let's go ahead and make these bigger tasks. Let's say, for example, this is actually 8 hours. Now we're able to see where Ali is with his capacity. So we can see for the week of September 1st to September 8th, he has 8 hours estimated, and the remaining capacity that he has is 12 hours. So this is super valuable. Once you have more tasks, once you have more hours estimated and more assignees, this gives you a visual to manage your workload. And that's it. We've just built a full project plan in Asana, complete with custom fields, task structure, automation, views, dependencies, and workload tracking. If you found this helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for more Asana tips, and drop a comment if there's a specific feature you want me to walk through. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.